What is the 4B movement?
Hey, ladies and gents, it's your favorite single mom, Black single mom here, millennial introvert. And today I wanted to talk about the 4B movement. Dun, dun, dun. No, but for real. Ooh, wow. So I have been steeped in the 4B movement over the last few days doing research about it. I just heard about it maybe like a few days ago, essentially. And when I heard about it, I knew this is it. This is what the ladies need to finally free ourselves from the males. So, if you don't know, if you haven't been following along and you don't have any clue what I'm talking about, let me play this video so I can break it down for you.
A lot of people have a lot to say about Korean feminism these days and the way they completely want to keep men out of their lives, like the 4B movement, where they just swear off having children with men, or getting married, sleeping with men, or even just dating. Just to let people know, it's called a 4B movement because it's four no's. The word P means no in Korean, so P something means no this. And combined with the fertility crisis in Korea, this has become a very sensitive issue, but none of this is very shocking to me, that a lot of Korean women want to swear off men because I've seen how bad Korean patriarchy can be. And this is very well represented in Korean literature, most famously in Kim Ji-young, born 1982. But what really told me the extent of how severe Korean patriarchy used to be was Please Look After Mom by Shin Kyung-suk. Aside from the main plot, which is about a family's struggle to search for their lost mother, the book describes the married life of the mother and the father, and it's set only, two generations away from my generation. And the patriarch in this portrayal doesn't work all that much, if at all. All he really is that he's the head of the family. She works, takes care of the kids, takes care of the home, while her husband does nothing and goes out to sleep with other women, drink with his friends, and do whatever he wants. At the end of the day, he can come back to the nest whenever he wants with no consequences of any kind. And that was apparently quite common in Korea before, where men don't do anything but just for existing, they were valued. The eldest male had power over everyone in the family and let nobody do anything without his consent, including other younger males like a little brother. This is 가부장제, a system where the eldest male takes all decision-making powers within the family unit. This is also 남아선호 사상, where they prefer male children to female children. Like, if women weren't able to produce male children, they were collectively punished by the rest of the family. Going back to Kim Ji-young, born 1982, the main character's little sister is aborted because she was a girl, and that happened very widely in the 80s and the 90s. People just aborted girls because they wanted boys. I mean, in the 60s, when medical technology wasn't, widely available and developed enough, they just throw infant girls away. Very akin to taking out the trash. That happened quite often in those times. And to me, people saying how radical Korean feminism has become don't realize that this is a proportional response to how bad it was for women, how they were just viewed as mere tools in Korean society before, how they were expendable outside of making babies, making sons more specifically. Everyone back in Korea called my mom 진우 엄마, meaning Chinu's mom. And actually back in Korea, all my friends' moms were called like this. 민우 엄마, 유리 엄마, 재성 엄마. And that was their names, basically. Only once in Canada, everyone called my mom by her name, and she finally wasn't just Chinu's mom anymore. And you may think this is trivial, but it's a part of how Korean society forces women into a role and makes them lose themselves in the process. And in the end, all that Korean women are asking for is to be treated like human beings and not go back to those days when they were nothing except their wombs.
So, the funny thing is, as I've been going through the comments and I was already realizing this myself, I have been unintentionally inside the 4B movement and not realizing it. I stopped dating probably, I want to say like 4 years ago when I left my narcissistic ex. After dealing with his crap for like almost 7 years, I decided I was going to be polyamorous. So I already basically knew that even if I'm going to be in a relationship, it's not going to be the same as it was in the past. I didn't really want to deal with guys' crap because I just got out of a relationship where I had been doing nothing but dealing with the guy's crap. He was the typical textbook narcissist. And of course, when I first got with him, I didn't know he was a narcissist. I didn't even know what a narcissist was until, ironically, I was watching my true crime shows like back to back to back. So I'm obsessed with true crime. I love analyzing the cases. And when I was listening to one of the forensic psychologists talking about these serial killers, I kept hearing in one episode after another episode with all these different cases, they kept saying this person was a narcissist. And then they would list the characteristics of a narcissist. And I was like, that sounds like my kid's dad. And it was very weird, almost like in the Twilight Zone, when you're sitting here in the living room watching this TV and realizing everything is making sense now. Like all the pieces fall perfectly in place that were missing before. And now it's like I'm able to see the past, the present, and even the future with this guy. Because I'm realizing like everything he did in the past, okay, that explains it. That's exactly the process he did as a narc. And then the present, he wasn't home at the time, but like the abuse, the neglect, the emotional abuse, physical abuse, mental abuse, financial abuse, you name it, it was happening if it was abusive. And then the future, the reason why I say that is because you can actually see, once you understand narcissism, you almost can basically predict how a narcissist is going to react to every and anything. They are very, very, very effing predictable. It's scary. It's good, but it's like scary. Like they're almost like a effing robot. Like it's insane. So essentially I play him on a regular basis and I don't think he even realizes it because he is so narcissistic. It's a whole personality disorder. And it's crazy because I feel they could be treated, not cured, but they can be treated if they were to get help. But a lot of them, because of the type of personality that it is, they're so in love with themselves. They lack so much self-awareness that their ego is so big but fragile at the same time. They're never going to get help. It's very unlikely. So, yeah. So I'll go on to explain that type of relationship so you all understand what I was going through for almost a decade. And in the process of that decade, giving birth to my 3 children that I have with him. One was a singleton pregnancy, and then the second one was multiple. So I had twins, which is really hilarious because I was trying to leave him after I had the first child that we had together. And then I was waiting for the perfect time, like once I had my money up and all that good stuff, and I could walk away. Then I, boom, got pregnant with not one, but 2 babies. So, yeah, trapped again. So, I do resonate when people talk about males who trap women with babies. And I remember when I got pregnant by him with our first child, he said, now we're going to be connected forever. When I look back at that moment, it's like really creepy. But yeah, so anywho, so I broke free from him around 2021. I actually purchased land in 2020. My whole life, I feel like a lot of times it's almost like make believe because of like how it plays out. But I feel like it is like that because I am very spiritual and I follow my higher self and definitely God. Um, and even like my spirit tribe, like a lot. So I'm always kind of just going on a whim and doing these things that to myself, even and a lot of people, won't even make sense. But it usually works out as is intended to work. So I ended up purchasing land in the middle of a freaking COVID. Like, what the heck was I doing? I don't know. I was just led to this property and went with it because I was being told to do it. So I did it. And then I ended up having things perfectly fall into place where my ex-husband offered to for us to like basically be roommates, move in together to help me get out of the abusive situation that I was in. Like once he knew what was happening, because I was keeping it from so many people because I didn't want people to be worried about me. I didn't want to seem like I was weak. I didn't want people to be, scared for me. So the only person that really knew all the details was my sister, who's my best friend. And I was pretty much covering all the abusive behavior and things from my children and my family and friends. So finally, when it became pretty dangerous, I finally had to tell my ex-husband. I was basically already had been trying to get out of the abusive relationship. And I have to tell you right now, the state services are not very helpful. So I was trying to get help moving from like one state back to my home state. And they were just awful. Like it's like the states were right next to each other and they just struggled with being able to facilitate that. So I had to basically save myself. And so I finally had to tell my ex-husband the truth because I want to say our older sons were, I felt kind of in danger and something was going on, but I finally had to break the silence, like tell him the truth. And he called me and offered, he was saying his lease was almost up. He was about to move into this bigger place, or well, he was about to move because wherever he was at, he didn't want to be there. And so he was like, if you want to move in with me, we can be like roommates, split the cost, whatever. Then let's do that. Like, let me know now before I sign a new lease. So I jumped on it and was like, yes, let's do it. And so we've been doing that now for like the last 4 years, and I love it here. So yeah, I remember when I first left him, my ex fiance, who's the narcissist, not my ex husband, who's not the narcissist. But when I left my ex fiance, I remember I used to just lay in the bed for like that first few months. And I used to just tell myself, I'm safe. I'm safe. And that's like what would calm me down and basically soothe the trauma away. Like whenever I would feel like anxiety or that PTSD coming back up, like I would tell myself, I'm safe, I'm safe. And I had to like almost remind myself that I was not in that traumatic situation anymore, that I wasn't in danger anymore. I was safe. And it actually helped me to have my ex-husband living with me because I feel like my ex-fiance doesn't narcissists do not understand boundaries. So I felt like he would have tried to break in and harm me. I don't feel like he would have ever harmed our kids, but you never know with these crazy unhinged guys. But I feel like he would have harmed me if my ex-husband wasn't there because males, as we know, tend to only be afraid of other men. And so he basically kept his distance. At first, I never even told him where I was living. And then he found out. So he basically was stalking and found out somehow. But once he found out, and then I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen when he finds out I'm living with my ex-husband? He might light this house on fire because he's crazy. But they're actually cowards. Like, narcissists are actually not as tough as they like to try to act like they are. So, anywho, you may wonder, so that because of all that going on with me, that's when I unknowingly ended up in a 4B movement because I didn't, at that point, of course, going through that kind of trauma and just having the ups and downs of relationships over a period of like the last 20 some years, I was just over it. I was like, I'm just kind of tired of dealing with dating and guys, struggle, love, confusion, fighting, you know, having the ups and downs. Like I really wasn't in the mood for it anymore. And I really just wanted to be alone. Like I've always loved my own company. I'm an introvert, as I always say in my videos, so you all understand my weirdness, but I've always been okay with my own company. I have, I think, a little bit of agoraphobia, so I don't even like to really go out much. I don't like to be around a lot of people when I do go out. And I'm very specific. Like if I do go out, I'm just going to get what I'm getting and I'm getting back home. And it's just because I just like being home. It's my happy place. I'm a homebody, whatever you want to call it. So I love being at home. I love creating a space within my home so that I never really feel like I need to leave the house. Um, like I have like a gym, I have my office. I just even like if I get online and I do the lives with like Themis and Throat or Cynthia G, it's like I just have my own universe right here. Like my family's here, my children are here. I can call my sister, my mom whenever I want. So I just like so many have said before, women do not get lonely like that. Like we're not hurting for a social outlet like guys are. I feel like guys rely a lot on women to bring that social aspect to their lives because males seem like they're just not socialized or raised or conditioned properly to be able to make healthy friendships and relationships with men and women. Speaking of that, so I was on Twitter one time and this guy actually wrote this post, and I don't know if I'll be able to find it because think did a screenshot of it. But he actually asked this really ugly and weird question about like, why do men even bother being friends with women? Like, what would be the point of it? What's the benefit? Like, he basically was just acting like women were objects. Like, what is like, are we even human to be friends with us? Like, what's like, he just acted like he didn't know why a man would be friends with a woman if he's not getting sex from her. And so he basically to me was saying that you can't be friends with women because they're objects and they're only good for one thing, which is sex. And so a lot of the older guys, because I think this guy was pretty young, they were coming down in the comments and they kind of like gave me some hope for the male species, because the male human species, because they were explaining like the benefits of being friends with a woman that you're not sleeping with, that you're not married to, that you have no reason to like. This is the thing with males, like, is it like they don't, I don't know if they understand like how to be friends with someone and not be like using them for something. Like, are they just takers all the time? So it seems like he was the guy, the original guy that wrote that post, seemed to be perplexed. Like, why would I be friends with a woman if she's not serving me, like giving me some kind of labor, free labor or something? I don't know. And so the guys that were older than him were saying, it just, these are the benefits that being a friends with a woman brings into their lives. And these are women they don't have a romantic relationship with, they're not sleeping with her, none of that. She's just a friend in their life. Those men that responded to him, that understood that, I feel like they are overwhelmingly the minority of the male human species. Like, I think the majority of them do not see women as anything more than an object. Like, they see us as like labor, having their children, having sex with us, giving them pleasure, cleaning up and cooking for them. Like, they don't understand. And this is why back when I was younger, I used to hear people say men and women can't be friends. And as a girl slash or a woman, however old I was, like when I was a teenager or, just a young girl, or like when especially when you're like a teenager to like womanhood. Because of course, when you're younger, you might have boys as friends. I don't know. And actually, let me do a side note on that. So my 5-year-old twins are already like, I asked they already kind of like, ew, girls have cooties. Like, they're already acting weird about girls. And I try to like get them away from that. Like, why can't you be friends with her? It's not a big deal. Like, because one little girl, she'll wave to them as we do the drop off pickup. And, I'm like, hey, little girl, I don't know her name. But I'm like, she just said hi. And my son's acting weird. He's like, ew, cooties, or whatever he's doing. And so I kind of want to raise my children and condition them that girls can be friends. You don't have to be sleeping with her to hang out with her. Like, it's going to be okay. I think Gen Z to some degree has gotten that. I'm not sure because they don't date a whole lot. And I feel like because they have like the pronouns and the fluid genders going on, like, in I think that they're more susceptible to being able to grasp that concept of being able to hang out with boys and girls without some kind of ulterior motive, other than just having a healthy, amazing friendship and companionship, like having this person be in your life and seeing that as such a benefit. And so back to what I was saying before, I was talking about my sons with the cooties, because it made me think about that. I think that men are just socialized to look at women as something that's just so different from them. But like, as I was a girl slash woman, because I'm talking about my, like maybe 16, 15, 14, going into like my younger woman ages, like 20 to 25 or something, I never understood why men felt like women, because I would hear men say this a lot, and I was like, why can't we be friends? Like, I didn't understand it. And I felt like it was because maybe guys just always think about sex and are just too attracted to women to be able to like just sit there and like have coffee or talk to her about a game that's on or whatever without wanting to like jump her bones. So I thought maybe it was like a hormonal thing or a attraction type thing. I didn't really realize until much older the level of like dislike or disdain that they have for women, and just the like it's almost like just the objectifying of women. I feel like the society also plays a huge role in that, and how we are perceived on in media, like on TV. I noticed that since I was a little girl. Like, why are we always half naked to sell a product or just anything? We'd be half naked for like the most mundane, weird, strange reasons. And I'm like, why don't we just have on clothes? Like, or like even when they would show like mothers cleaning up the messes in the kitchens on the commercials, I remember that used to piss me off because I'm like, okay, so dad and the son or child is knocking over stuff and the mom's coming out of nowhere with the paper towels. Like, why can't dad clean it up? That was annoying. And so I do blame a lot of it on society. Like, I feel like society and with the media, because of course males are running all of that, is conditioning the world, our country. I'm only going to speak for our country, even though I know this is happening all over the world. The patriarchal system, but like in our country, they like try to condition girls to think like, oh, it's okay for us, or we so want to just be cleaning up behind everyone and cooking for everyone. And I remember just being really upset and angry about that because I was like, I don't like doing those things any more than anyone else. Like, I'm going to do those things because I'm a good wife or a good mother, or I want to be a good person, which is what they usually exploit from women. But it wasn't because I like it. And that's just what it is. My sister does not cook at all. Like, every guy she's ever really been with, like long term, they are really good cooks. They love to cook. I don't know if that's part of like what attracted her to them. But my mom and I were talking and we were like, we just think that's kind of funny and weird that she just happens to be with guys who love to cook, because she ain't cooking a thing. And I know how to cook. I've sat in the kitchens watching my grandmother cook, my mom cooking, putting the food together. It was like magical, like just a moment to bond with the ladies in my family who I love so much. So I never saw it as like, oh, I don't want to. Like, it wasn't like a feminist moment. Like, I was just a kid wanting to be up under my grandmother or my mom, and that was like just like a really warm experience for me as a child. And so because of that, I learned how to cook because I was always just kind of like around them, picking up like how they would cook. Like, just how it is when you're older, you just kind of putting stuff in there. You're not reading a recipe, you're just pinch of this, a handful of that, or whatever. And you just, it's almost like I say, it's just almost artistic how I would watch them move around the kitchen and just knowing which ingredients to grab out of the cupboard and putting it all together, and then it's tasting really good. And so that's literally how I learned how to cook, was more by accident than anything else. It was just more of like, I'm around it. It's kind of like picking up a second language. Like, if you're just inside of it, immersed in it, you're in that country, you're just going to pick it up. Or even being around your parents with your first language, you're just going to pick it up because you're just always around it. You're not like intentionally trying to learn it or being told you need to learn it. You're just always happening. You're just around it all the time. So the 4B movement, I feel, is very needed. It actually makes me feel like I'm not like alone in this, because I am kind of surrounded by some pick me's. So I mean, I love them to pieces, but they're pick me's and mammies. And so um I actually came up with this like thing I was going to tell my family so they don't try to set me up. And this is before, again, that I even knew the 4B movement existed. But I was going to tell them, I don't want to date until my children are older. And I felt like that would buy me some time, um, and get them off my back. Because I feel like at the end of the day, I think I learned this from Sex in the City, that people just like really just want to just understand you. They want to get you, right? So it's just like the child free movement. As a mother, as a parent, like, people just want to try to understand why you're going against something that's seen as a social norm, right? So even if it feels natural to you, others don't see it enough and don't understand it. So I my excuse or whatever I was going to use, which is not really an excuse, it's really what I was planning on doing, was to explain, because I was thinking like, okay, so let me tell you a little bit of my story. It's a story time here. So my sister like just got divorced and it was abusive. It was awful. Like near the end, it got really abusive and scary. And then we found out he had a prior record of domestic violence. So that made it even more terrifying. And she went through hell trying to get out of that marriage. Like that's another thing that added to me saying I'm never going to remarry. Like I already knew I wasn't, but that really was like I'm never going to do this again. And so now it's been like a few months since her divorce went through, and she's just already met this guy that she's known him for years. But I'm like, are you really ready to be committed? And not even that, you all. She's already talking about marrying this guy. I love my sister, okay, but I feel like she is, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I feel like she's a bit of opportunistic marriage person. Like she marries people because of opportunity. It's not really because of love. She and my niece, they're very much alike. And I love this about them. I think it's so cool. Like they don't really get caught up in the love stuff as much as like I do, or like a lot of other women do. Like they're more like logical and methodical about it, like not as even like emotional about it. And so I feel like she's just doing it more because it's beneficial to her financially. And she knows him. They've known each other for a long time. There's really nothing wrong with it at all, like what she's doing. I do worry about her because she's my sister. So I want to make sure she's not going to get hurt again. So it's very new. I'm like paying attention, kind of watching it, making sure he doesn't make any mistakes. Like he's definitely on his P's and Q's because he knows I already did a background check on him. But anyways, so yeah, so that's what's going on. But like the thing is, my sister and I are so close that whenever like one of us do something, I know that the family expects the other one to do it because we've always been basically almost like twins. We're 3 years apart, but we're very close. We sound alike, talk like every day. We're a lot alike. It's funny because we're not like a lot alike, but we are. Like she's more of the conservative one, I'm more of the free spirit, but we interchange throughout our lives. Sometimes I'm more conservative on things, she's more free spirit. So anyways, like the fact that she's like now basically engaged, I'm just like, oh my gosh, I know everybody's gonna be pressuring me. Like just like when she got married to the last guy, I was like everyone's gonna be looking at me. My mom is, because she's a little bit of a narcissist, she likes to play her kids against each other. She may or may not even know she's doing it, but I think she does know she's being manipulative. But she'll be like, oh, she's always comparing her kids, which I don't think you should ever do. But she does it all the time. She'll be like, at least your sister is married. She has a man. She'll say these awful things. And then, so I know even if I don't hear her say it, like what she's saying in her head or what she's saying to other people, because she loves to gossip, that she's probably talking about me not having a husband and having my kids and, like trying to make me seem like I'm struggling or negative. But honestly, my sister and I are very close, and she knows. She's told me several times, and I believe it and know it, that she envies my life. Like my life is amazing. I don't have to work if I don't want to. I have my own money. I have my children. They're healthy and beautiful. I love being a mom. I love children. I always have, and my whole family knows that. Educated, job, like I can create my own businesses. I've made several. So whenever I feel like working again, I can. I have my own property, like my own land that I plan to disappear to when I'm done with my children, when they're done with school. But anyways, and I have the support of like not one, but two of my kids' fathers. So life is good for me. It can't get any better. A single mom with 5 kids, like it could be a lot, obviously a lot worse. So my sister has told me many times, she calls me sometimes just to live vicariously through me, that, she loves my life and just wishes it could be her, like just being home resting. And so even though we don't do the jealousy thing, like even though we may envy some things like, oh, I wish I could be doing that too, we just live through each other instead. Like that's how we love each other and support each other. So she's planning on taking off for Germany, and I'm living vicariously through it. Honestly, I don't want to be moving anywhere. I'm not even gonna lie. Like I have not, like I was a military brat. That's what you call it. Like if you're not familiar, like if your parents are in the military, you're considered a military brat. That's what they used to call us. I don't know if they still say the same terminology because things become so politically correct that now you can't call kids brats. Whatever. I was a military brat, right? So we moved a lot. And then I went in myself, kept moving a lot. Then I got married to a military man after I got out, continued to move a lot. So I'm just kind of like over the moving. I'm not even going to lie. Like I really, and even once, I'm just kind of over it. So I'm not really envying my sister for wanting to go over to Germany, but I am excited because I love Germany. I lived in Europe for 2 years in Belgium, and I just love Europe. So I was definitely planning on visiting her, but I don't envy her but I'm excited for her. Like I'm excited because I feel like this is going to be a great job opportunity for her because she's been trying to level up in her career, and I think this is going to be the answer to that. So I'm very excited about that. But so essentially, I know I'm just all over the place, but but what I think is funny is when I was reading the comments, a lot of women were saying they've been in the 4B movement for years. Like some women said 12 years, 10 years. And I've seen these women talking online about being single and not dating really at all. Like just really being single for like decades, like over decades along. And this is years ago before I even knew before movement was even on the radar anywhere. And so I know for a fact these women are not just saying this because this movement has come about. These women have been single for a minute. They've been sick of men for a minute and they're doing their own thing for a minute. And so a lot of people are like now trying to act like, oh, like I feel like people are going to try to say, oh, you're on a bandwagon, you're just jumping this bandwagon. But a lot of us were already basically sworn off men. We're just kind of like, we're done. I'm good. I'm kind of tired of having to, mend the broken heart and all the mental problems that come with dealing with males, like the trauma that they're constantly putting you under, the cheating, the beating, the verbal abuse, physical, financial, like all of it. Nope, done with it. And the reason why it's so funny because in one of the videos I want to try to show you all because I was steep in you all. Like when I tell you I was steep in 4B dust, I was steep in it because the males are mad and nobody cares. Like literally no one cares. They're so mad they've actually created their own movement called the 4G movement, which is hilarious to me because when I first heard it, I automatically thought about the mobile, like the cell phone network. And I just saw like T-Mobile in their commercials talking about the 4G. And I was like, that's odd. But yeah, still don't know what the G means and what their 4Gs are, but this is what they're doing. And it's just funny because I had to basically wade about in dust to get the videos I wanted to get you all so that you have like all the information in one video about the 4B movement because everyone's all over the place with it. It's all a buzz. I feel like women are so excited about it. And the reason why we are, time I saw it, I was thrilled because I was like, finally, I don't feel like I'm alone in this because women love community. We are the village. And so when you have women who were still trying to flex marriage and make you feel bad for like not really wanting to deal with men, it was kind of a confusing place because it's like, I don't want to be married, but I don't want to come off as bitter either. Like I really don't know where I am in this society like right now. And so here comes the 4B movement, and it's like our answer to our prayers. Like, oh, this is great. Like we have a name that we can, usher in together, and it's kind of like a group. Like now you belong somewhere. You're not just floating aimlessly about. And I feel like it's also giving me the strength to deal with the naysayers, my family, people who are going to be saying things to me as I enjoy being single because they want to, set me up with someone or pair me off or marry me off. No, I'm good. And I know it's really different for them to understand that. And it's weird because my mom, she stayed back in the days, those older generations, they stayed in a marriage. I mean, they would get married like 50 times. I'm like, ooh, Lord bless you. Like, I don't know how y'all do it. I ain't even trying to do it a second time. Like, what were you doing? Like the men and the women, like marriage, marriage, marriage. They just get divorced, married again. So people think people back then were married for like 50 years. No, they were married when they died, but it was like the eighth husband or the 10th wife. Like they were getting remarried so many times. Like they didn't know how to just date. They didn't cohabitate. I think because of like religion, it was frowned upon back then too to like live together. They were like, "Oh, you're living in sin." So they would, I guess, feel like, "Well, we got to get married because it'll look bad otherwise." But those days are gone. People are cohabiting together and raising whole families and are not concerned and completely unbothered. And in Europe, they do it even more so than they do in America. Like they're definitely more free spirited than we are here in uptight America. And so it's really common over there to just call people their partners. Even if they are married, I think they still call them like their partners. They don't really do the my wife, my husband, this, my man, my man. No, I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. But they just say like my partner and my kids, blah, blah, blah. And that's just totally natural, like how they talk about it. So the 4B movement is amazing to me because I feel like it's going to make women understand they're not alone. We are going through this huge energetic shift that's happening in the universe as it calibrates itself and recalibrates. And so the universe always has to be balanced. And the masculine and the feminine energies have been out of balance for a long time. Obviously, the males are having way too much power, and the women are just like kind of starving for just space, like just to breathe. And the more rights we're getting, the more women are educating themselves about relationships through TikTok, through social media, talking to each other. It's kind of like having like lunch with the elders or having lunch with the ladies and talking about things that before I felt like were kept behind closed doors. So women were kind of trapped in these prison sentences, which, slash marriages. And we really didn't know what the other woman was going through unless you were married yourself. A lot of times you may or may not talk to other married women. But I think it was like an unspoken rule that like once you get married, you have to separate from the single women because we're going to be a bad influence. And I just felt like if you really were meant to be married to this person, like why would anybody be threatening? How can anyone threaten that? But we know it's extremely a fragile structure and like type of concept and relationship because it's man-made. It's not even natural. So they have to like when people get married, they had to shut out everybody so they can survive. And it's like this is really just doing too much. So yeah. So anyways, I just think it's like really hilarious because I knew like time I heard the 4B movement, I was like, oh, so I've been doing this for years and didn't even know it was like a thing. And I really took off with it like 2 years ago. That's how long I've been celibate. And so I just kind of was like, I'm kind of over the whole dating thing. And then like I want to say last year, after the last bad experience I had with a male, I thought something came down. I think it was my higher self. Higher self Sam is what I call her. But I think she was like telling me like, think about it. Every time you were having a hard time or a bad time in life, it was because of a man. Yeah, and that's when I was like, I think she's got something there. Like and it just kind of got legs and took off. Like it just took off. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done with this because for me, my motivation is my children. Like they're always my top motivator in life to like be great. And so I got tired of the males because I felt like they're taking my mental from my children. Like if I'm crying or I'm sad or I'm depressed, whatever they're making happen to me, which of course is already an issue because I don't want anyone having that much power over me to be controlling my feelings. But like, however I'm having to react to their BS is taking from like me being a good mom. And that's when I was like, ugh, this, what am I doing? I'm out of this, I'm just over it. So I just walked away and I silently did it. So I want to make sure we put that into the movement so women know, like, be silent about it, ladies. Like, don't like be incognito if you're going to talk about it. But like, you don't have to announce it to the world that you're doing this in person or even if you're showing your face on your channel because males are going to be getting angry. They're already angry. And I'm going to show those videos of males crying all over the place about the 4B movement and then crying so much that they're creating the 4G movement.
I have the pleasure of introducing to you the 5B movement. The 5B movement is a complete rejection of feminism, working women, career women, and it is complete support of traditional women, housewives, pick-me women, and we're calling for all men to leave women alone until you are able to afford a housewife. It is specifically to get up your money and focus on your career until you can have a housewife and afford a housewife. Okay? This is a movement to move families back to the traditional ways. The 5B movement. Study shows stay-at-home moms married to well-off men produce the best results for children. Women with a high education are more likely to divorce. All right. Career women are more likely to neglect their children. Career women have bad attitudes. So we're tired of this. We're tired of the single mom crap. Traditional women are more likely to have a long lasting marriage. You're less likely to have a baby mama if you go traditional and if you can afford a traditional woman. All right. This will improve our community. You don't have to surrender to control of feminism. They're using the 4B movement to try to control men. Okay? Do not fall for it. Avoid feminism, career women. Focus on your money. Make money. You don't have time for women. You have time to make money. Once you get that money right, you can buy a house and start your family with a housewife. The 5B movement is a complete rejection of baby mamas, single moms, all right? And even though I'm a passport bro, I'm not counting out traditional American women for the other men, all right? So this is a calling for all men to leave women alone until you are able to afford a housewife and pay all the bills. It's better for children, it's better for families, and nuclear families are better. Do not let feminists continue to ruin our families and increase broken families. Please support the 5B movement for a better future.
See, guys don't realize that like women are not thinking about them. Like they really think that it's like a tit for tat thing. And that's how childish and weird that they are because women are not thinking about you. It's never been about you. Like we're actually trying to find ourselves. And a lot of us have been in hermit mode for a very long time and going within. And we're just trying to heal and become better people for the people around us and just to be better and put better into the universe, like more love and less hate and all of that great stuff. So while women are healing and just really getting better at self-healing, males are still looking for that external locus. They're still trying to get their feel-good feelings from somewhere externally. They're still trying to get their validation from an external source. They're still trying to understand themselves from someone else. It's like, just breathe, like go within, go home and go sit down somewhere. Stop being weird and watching too much porn and just breathe, stop doing the most because you're obviously doing something wrong. And they're so egotistical. They don't want to admit like we don't know what the hell we're doing and we're screwing things up with women. And we really like women. We actually want to be around women, but we don't know how to do it. And maybe we should go to therapy. Like that would be that would be like a good idea. So anyway, yeah, I just want to talk about it. I'll probably be talking about this topic as it really takes off because I feel like it's really going to take off. Just from what I've seen, I've already seen a lot of women so excited about it. And a lot of them talking about they've already been doing it, So that's another whole thing because a lot of people are like, oh, well, this is not going to work in America. And they come up with these long, long diatribes, this whole monologue that no one asked for. And they're talking about like why it won't work. I'm sitting here reading it, and I know a lot of other women are reading it and really thinking like, not only will it work, but it's already happening. Hello, like look at the birth rate decline. Why do you think that's happening? It's not because women can't have babies. It's because they don't want to have babies. And then you have the marriage rates declining. You have the rise of the lonely single men. So if those three things can help you understand that this has already been quietly happening behind the scenes and women just haven't had a name for it yet, and we didn't know other women were doing it really either because it wasn't a movement. It was really just like more energetically and naturally women just wanting to protect themselves because that Black femicide, again, is no joke. So me looking at that and realizing that was the whole thing, that's another whole aspect of like, that's a whole nother like nuance to it. The violence that I'm seeing, like the man punching women in the face randomly on the streets of New York. And then of course the Black femicide. I'm like, okay. So basically women are safer the further they get from these people, these men, like the closer the proximity, because if you look at the data, it says women are overwhelmingly harmed and or unalived by their intimate partners, like not a stranger, not whomever. It's like the person you're sleeping next to every night. So that tells me again, like, there's something going on with the males and it's not good. And women are safer and will be better off and happier if they're like keeping further away from these males. So that played another role in it. And then of course, I don't want to bring males around my children. My living situation is like not something that is ideal for that. And I think everything just came together as a perfect storm for me to just swear off guys for now. And I don't know if this ever is going to change. Because honestly, y'all, I'm obsessed with getting a cat. And I think that's like another sign that like, I'm the cat lady. Like, doesn't help that I'm a Leo and that's our animal. And I love animals. I've always loved animals. And the funny thing is I've never really been a huge fan of cats. So the fact that I just keep seeing like myself with a black cat is just, I think, another sign. So you all check out the videos. Let me know what you think about this movement. Are you in the 4B movement? Do you think this movement is going to last or work? What do you think the repercussions are going to be for the 4B movement? Do you think men are going to change? Do you think women are just going to give in and be like, forget it, we missed the D? Who knows? Let me know in the comments below. And also let me know what you think about the 4G movement, the guys' backlash to the women's natural movement that we're having. Because a lot of guys think that we're doing it because of them. And that's just not the case. I mean, we're reacting to how they treated us and how they treat us online and everything else with their big microphones and their manosphere and their incel, the red pill. And I feel like I'm forgetting a fourth one, but we are reacting to that, but we're not really doing it because of that. We're doing it more for ourselves. And I feel like males are definitely going to miss this because they just lack the self-awareness. So they're just not going to really understand it.
4B movements in Korean means 4 no's. No dating, no sex, no marriage, no kids. The choice of word they use for the word no in this case is called B, which starts with letter B. So that's why it's called 4B movements. 비연애, 비섹스, 비혼, 비출산.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this because a lot of people think that Korea having the lowest birth rate in the world is mainly due to women not having children, couples not being able to afford the cost of starting a family. But the reality is that the seeds of this crisis were something sowed by the government a long time ago. So as early as 1960s, the government initiated something called 산하제한 정책. Essentially, they wanted to limit births. Because back in the 1960s, poverty was a big problem and fertility rate was 6 kids per woman. So in order to improve the economic situation, the government started to encourage and incentivize people to have less babies. So there'd be public awareness campaigns everywhere with slogans like 많이 낳아 고생 말고 알맞게 낳아서 훌륭하게 기르자. So meaning, don't suffer with many children, but raise a few very well. They would give free sterilization services at clinics, like free vasectomies. They would also give various benefits to families that underwent sterilization or have less children. This effort continued into the 1970s, where the government campaigned hard on 2 children as the ideal model of the family unit, because despite all this convincing, people would basically have as many kids as possible in order to get a son. So if you had 2 daughters, a typical household would say, well, we have to have more because we don't have a son yet. To the government's credit, they noticed that people were doing this because of how the preference for male children was deeply embedded within their culture. So the government started campaigning on how daughters are amazing. Slogans like 잘 키운 딸 하나 열 아들 안 부럽다, a good daughter is better than 10 sons, or 딸 아들 구별 말고 둘 만나 잘 기르자, either son or daughter, let's just have 2 and raise them well. And then in the 80s, the government campaigned even harder, encouraging for 1 child instead of 2. And then finally, fertility rate went below the replacement rate, which is 2.1 in 1983. To give you an example of how far the government went to discourage people from having more children, the benefits for households with 2 children or less included things like cash payments from the government, additional vacation days, maternity leave, subsidy for your children's education, and much more. So it was actually a big financial loss to have more children for people. The government also encouraged couples to get more abortions and actually gave out free abortions alongside free sterilizations. For instance, in the 1970s and the 80s, there was something called 낙태버스, which were these mobile clinics that would go around to rural areas and give free abortions. So the government kept this policy up until 1996, which is when they realized, oh wait, we've gone way too far now. So they tried to reverse that. But then in 1997, Korea had a catastrophic economic meltdown, and that further discouraged people from having kids for a while, because when your life is financially destroyed, you don't want to have kids. And here we are now at 0.72, lowest in the world. So much of the current issues with low fertility in Korea is based on the government's actions through the 60s until the 90s. Because guess what? Academics and researchers agree that fertility decline is very difficult to reverse. But here's a side effect of these policies that might have also contributed to worsen the fertility rate. Remember how I said there was a culture of preference for male children? Well, when the government really made it undesirable to have more than 2 children or even 1, and when they made abortion widely available for very cheap or just free, a lot of couples just aborted girls in order to get boys. So what happens? A lot more boys come out, causing a massive imbalance in the gender ratio. Korea in the 80s and the 90s would be marked by huge gaps in gender imbalance, reaching as high as 116 men per 100 women and never going below 110 men per 100 women until 2003. So let's think about that. Let's say 100 men and 100 women get married and have kids. For almost 20 years, 10 to 15 men become leftovers. That affects how many babies will be born in the future, because if the genders were more balanced, there would be more couples and no leftover men. At its core, fertility rates are driven by how many women are there to begin with, because men can't give birth. And no, this isn't entirely on the government. It's also on the culture of Korea that used to devalue girls and favored boys. But, now you know, if there's anyone to blame for Korea achieving the lowest fertility rate in the world, it's mostly on the government.
South Korean women choose to be child-free just so as not to have to deal with their men. The feminist 4B movement gained global attention by leaving behind relationships, family, and children.
No heterosexual marriage, no childbirth, no dating, and no heterosexual sex.
The South Korean patriarchy is believed to be the source of protest, as it denigrates women's role in society.
In South Korea, a lot of mothers face discrimination in the workplace.
Men don't do anything, but just for existing, they were valued.
Women in South Korea are so tired of fighting against this bullshit that they're just opting out.
Many users from different countries also expressed agreement with the movement, with some stating that it should be in their country.
Y'all heard of the 4B movement? I'm a big fan.
So leave your comments below, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching, and thank you to all my subscribers. Talk to you soon.